So having understood the process by which perceptions get formed, how do we influence them? Right? Because you want your reality to be as close to the world reality as possible, right? So let's first look at how do we influence sensory activity. So these are some ways in which you can make this sensory acuity that much better and closer to what has happened in the world reality. This is a metamodel table. A metamodel is one of the very important aspects of NLP. It is an explicit set of linguistic information gathering tools to bridge the gap between the world reality and our reality. So if you hear somebody saying, I am uncomfortable, so your auditory sense has received this information saying, I am uncomfortable. If you form perceptions based on this statement, there is a chance that this perception may not be close to what the real reality is. So if you can ask a question about what or about whom, the response to that could be, I am uncomfortable about the crowd which is there in this place. Now this is going to remove the ambiguity from the statement, and then the perception that you form about that statement would be closer to what the real reality is, right? So this table gives different violations that typically happen, which causes the difference between the actual reality or the world reality and your reality, and what are the questions that you can ask in those situations to remove the ambiguity from what the input that you've gathered, right? So having seen the process by which perceptions get formed and create a gap between world reality and your reality, if we think that some of these perceptions are adversely affecting our life journeys, it is important that we influence these perceptions. So let us look at ways in which we can influence the perceptions, our own perceptions. In every situation, become more aware of your responses. Keep asking yourself the question, why did I behave this way in this situation? Try and understand the gaps in the sensory acuity and the metamodel violations that you probably committed. If you do this diligently, the insights that you will gather will ensure that you're more aware of why you respond to situations. What are the perceptions which are influencing your responses in various situations? Another way to influence your own perceptions is to empathize. Learn to look at every situation from the other person's point of view. This will help you realize how your perceptions either match or differ from the perceptions of people around you. As a practice, try and break the unconscious patterns that you may have fallen into. In most cases, the perceptions are a result of all these patterns that we have fallen into over a long period of time. The environment, the way we have grown up, the habits that we have fallen into, the beliefs that have been ingrained into us, all these have resulted in certain perceptions being formed which will affect the way we take decisions. What about others' perceptions about us? If these perceptions are adversely affecting our life journeys, then we better do something about it, isn't it? How do we influence the perception of others? The best and possibly the only way is to ask, take feedback from people around you about what they perceive you to be, perceive your behaviors to be. The first step in the process to understand the perception of others is ask. Ask for feedback at regular intervals from your colleagues at work, from your relations, from your friends, about certain aspects of your behavior. When you ask for feedback, the second step is listen. And listen completely, listen fully with all your senses. Listen without being defensive. Now that you've listened, the next step is to introspect. Look at what people are telling about you. Introspect on all the examples that you've shared about certain behaviors. It's okay to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is not a weakness. In fact, feeling vulnerable is the first step to change. Even if people have given some negative feedback about you, it's okay. Let it not affect your self-esteem. So, after you've asked, you've listened, introspect on what people are telling about you about certain aspects of your behavior. From all the feedback that you've received, the ones that you feel very strongly about, it is time for you to think about what are the changes that you're going to bring in those behaviors. This is also a point when you can take the help of an external coach with whom you can work and find innovative solutions. Come up with actions for ensuring that there is a permanent behavioral change. And believe me, change is not easy. Behavioral change is not easy at all. It is a step-by-step process. So define those steps. Come up with smart actions. One important aspect of behavioral change that you're trying to do to change the perception of others is to communicate the actions that you're now embarking on. So while we may have identified actions, it is important that you inform back the people from whom you're taking the feedback that these are the actions that you are planning to do to bring about a change in the behavior. Multiple reasons for doing this. One is this will be a pressure on you because you've told so many people that you're taking these actions. It is a pressure on you to actually implement those actions. Number two is it will give the other person a feel-good factor. It is like a feel-good factor to the other person that whatever they have said about you, you're taking cognizance of that and you're taking that seriously. And third is very important factor is when you go back to them again in the future, they will be more open to give feedback, and this could have a very positive impact on your relationship. This will also ensure that they will always give you the benefit of the doubt. In future, when you are in the process of changing behaviors, there are points in time when you may go back to that earlier behavior. People who know that you're taking efforts to change it will give you the benefit of doubt at this point in time. And the last step is go back to the same set of people after a certain period of time and ask for their feedback on how do they think you have changed in this period of time. So if you have been conscious about the actions and if you have been disciplined enough to implement those actions and you have also informed the people about the efforts that you're taking, there is going to definitely be a discernible change in their perception about you. So this is a process. It's not easy, but it's simple. So my dear friends, if you have the courage to ask, the humility to accept that you can be vulnerable, the patience to listen and introspect on what is being said about you, and very importantly, if you have the discipline to implement the actions that you identified, change can happen. Change in your behavior and very importantly, the perception of people about you. So what we have seen is perception does matter because it influences the way you take decisions and the way people behave with you based on their perceptions. We have seen that there is always a difference between the world reality or the actual reality and your reality or the reality of people around you. We saw the process by which perceptions get created, and we also saw how the perceptions can be influenced. So my dear friends, perceptions do matter. and it is in your hands how you let that affect your journeys of life. All the best.